Rayan lived in a small, peaceful town surrounded by tall mountains and clear blue skies. Life was slow there. People knew each other, shops closed early, and the nights were always calm. He worked at a local bookstore, spent his evenings reading, and walked home under the stars almost every night. He loved quiet moments, soft music, and the feeling of fresh wind brushing against his face. One evening, something unusual happened. It was just after sunset. The sky had turned orange and purple, and people had gathered at the town square for a small festival. Colorful lights hung from every street corner, and music played in the background. Rayan stood near a tree, quietly watching the crowd and sipping from a paper cup of warm tea. That's when he saw her. She stood across the square, tall and graceful, with long dark hair that shimmered like water under moonlight. Her eyes glowed, faintly, almost like stars trapped in human form. She wore a silver robe that flowed around her as she moved, and her face was calm, beautiful, in a way that was hard to explain. People noticed her, but no one seemed to ask questions. Some assumed she was a performer or tourist. A few whispered about her strange look, but no one went close. Rayan couldn't stop staring. There was something about her that felt different. Like she didn't belong here, yet still looked like she belonged more than anyone else. He had never seen anyone like her in all his life. As she walked past him slowly, just a few steps away, he couldn't help it. He leaned slightly to the side and whispered softly to himself, "She's so beautiful. I wonder if she'd marry me." He didn't expect anyone to hear. He didn't even mean it seriously. It was just a soft thought, said aloud for no reason, like a dream escaping through his lips. But in that exact moment, as she walked past, she suddenly turned her head slightly. She looked directly at him. Her eyes met his, and Rayan felt his heart stop. It was only for a second. No smile, no frown. Just a calm, knowing look, like she had heard everything. But that couldn't be true. He had whispered it, barely even said it out loud. The music was playing, people were talking. There was no way she could have heard, but deep inside, something told him she did. The girl didn't say anything. She simply turned her gaze away and continued walking, disappearing into the crowd. Rayan stood frozen, confused and unsure of what just happened. His tea had gone cold, and his heart was racing for reasons he couldn't explain. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about her. The way she looked, the way she walked, and most of all, the way she had looked at him. It wasn't a normal look. It wasn't like when someone catches you staring and gets annoyed. No, her eyes had been understanding, almost like she had known what he was going to say before he said it. For the next few days, Rayan tried to forget. He went back to work, arranged books on shelves, helped customers find novels, and smiled politely to the elderly woman who always bought tea from the shop next door. But in every quiet moment, his mind went back to that night. He even visited the town square again, hoping to see her, but she didn't appear. Then, on the fourth day, everything changed. Rayan was walking home after closing the bookstore. The streets were quiet, the lamps glowed softly, and the breeze was cool. He turned onto the small road that led to his house, humming a tune he barely remembered, when he suddenly stopped. Someone was standing in front of his house. It was her. The same silver robe, the same glowing eyes, her face calm, still, and yet filled with something he couldn't describe. She looked at him as if she had been waiting, as if she already knew he'd come at that exact moment. Rayan froze. His voice got stuck in his throat, and he looked around, unsure what to do. But the girl took a slow step forward and spoke for the first time. "You whispered something," she said gently. "Did you mean it?" Rayan's heart jumped. He stared at her, shocked, not knowing what to say. How could she have heard that? He had barely whispered. She had been walking away, and now she stood in front of him, asking about something he didn't even think she noticed. I didn't think you could hear me, he said finally, his voice soft. She tilted her head, slightly, and gave a small smile. We hear more than you think. Rayan's legs felt weak, and he slowly sat down on the small bench near his garden gate. She walked closer and sat beside him, not too close, but just near enough for him to feel the warmth of her presence. Who are you? He asked, his voice full of wonder and confusion. The girl looked up at the stars. I come from far away, not from this land, not from this sky, but I come with peace. I watch, I learn. Rayan listened, stunned and silent. I heard your whisper, she continued, and I felt something I was not supposed to feel. Something new. Rayan looked at her, still unsure if he was dreaming or awake. Was it just a thought? She asked softly. Or did you mean it? Even a little? He didn't answer. Not because he didn't know, but because the truth felt too strange to say out loud, and yet somewhere deep inside, he already knew. His life would never be the same again. Rayan sat silently beside her, still not believing what was happening. The mysterious girl, who once seemed like a dream, was now sitting next to him on the bench outside his home. The stars above them were bright and quiet, and the night breeze carried a calmness that wrapped around them like a soft blanket. She looked up again at the sky. You don't have to be afraid, she said, her voice calm, like music that made the heart relax. I'm not afraid, Rayan replied slowly, though his hands were still slightly shaking. Just confused. She turned to face him. I understand. Humans are not used to things like this. He looked at her closely. You said you're not from here. What do you mean? She paused for a moment, as if choosing the right words. My name is Liari, she finally said. I am not from your planet. I come from a place far away, from a star system your people have never visited. We travel across space, not to rule or to take, but to learn. To understand life, emotions, choices, especially those made by humans. Rayan blinked. You're an alien? She nodded gently. That's what your kind would call me. But I look like you because it's easier this way. If I showed my true form, it might scare people. Rayan looked down at his hands, trying to make sense of everything. It felt like a dream, but her presence was too real. Her voice was too honest. But why me? He asked after a moment. Why are you here, talking to me? She smiled softly. Because you said something that touched me. Something no one has ever said to me before. Rayan remembered his whisper. That small, silly line he said under his breath during the festival. She's so beautiful. I wonder if she'd marry me. At the time, it had just slipped out. A thought so quiet that even he barely noticed it. I didn't think anyone could hear me, he admitted. We hear many things, Liari said gently. Our hearing is not like yours. Your whisper was clear to me, but it wasn't just your words. It was the feeling behind them. It was pure, honest. It wasn't a joke or something to impress someone, it was real. Rayan looked at her, unsure what to say. You see, she continued, we don't feel things the way humans do. My kind is trained to stay calm, to never get too close. We study emotions, but we don't let them live inside us. But you felt something? Rayan asked quietly. Liari nodded. Yes. For the first time, I felt something I didn't understand. Something warm. It stayed with me, even when I went back to my ship. I thought about you, your voice, your face, and that small whisper. It made me feel something human. Rayan's heart beat a little faster. He looked at her. Not just as a visitor from the stars, but as someone lost between two worlds. Someone brave enough to come back for a simple moment of truth. "I don't know what to say," he whispered. "You don't have to say anything," she replied. "I just wanted to see you again. I wanted to know if your words were just passing thoughts, or something deeper." Rayan sat still for a moment. Then, very gently, he looked into her glowing eyes and said, "I didn't mean it as a joke. I was surprised by how beautiful and different you looked. I felt something too. Something I didn't understand. It just came out. But it was real." Liari closed her eyes for a moment and breathed in slowly, as if that small truth gave her peace. The street around them was quiet. Not a single car passed. The lamps flickered softly, and the night birds sang their gentle songs. Everything felt still, like time had slowed down just for them. Then she stood up. "I must return for now," she said. "My presence here is being watched." Rayan's eyes widened slightly. "You mean, there are others like you watching?" She nodded. "Yes, they know I've been coming here. I'm not supposed to form emotional connections. It's against our rules. Our mission is to observe only. Not to get involved, but I couldn't stay away." Rayan stood up too. "Will they punish you?" "They might," she said honestly. "But I don't regret meeting you." He took a step closer. "Will I see you again?" "I don't know," she whispered. "But if I can, I will return. There is something about you, Rayan. Something kind and honest. You made me feel human, even when I'm not." He looked down, unsure what to say. He wanted to stop her, to ask her to stay, but deep inside, he understood. She didn't belong here. She had duties, responsibilities, and a world far beyond his understanding. "Before you go," he said, "can I ask one thing?" "Of course." "Was I the first human you spoke to like this?" She gave a small, soft smile. "You were the first human who truly saw me. Not with fear, but with wonder." With those words, she slowly walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the trees behind his house. There were no bright lights, no flying ship, no loud sound, just silence. And then, she was gone. Rayan stood alone, staring into the night sky. Everything had changed. He had whispered a simple line, something small, something pure, and somehow it had touched someone not from this world, someone who had returned just to ask if he meant it, and he had, even more than he first realized. Days passed, but Rayan couldn't forget Liari. He returned to his daily routine, opening the bookstore, organizing shelves, helping customers. He smiled when he needed to, nodded politely, and tried to look normal. But inside, he was full of thoughts. Her voice, her eyes, her words. They stayed with him like a quiet echo in his heart. Every evening, he sat on the same bench where she had once appeared, hoping she might come back again. She didn't. Not the next day or the day after. Still, he waited. He found himself staring at the stars more often now. Before, they were just dots in the sky. But now, he wondered what was out there. Where was she? Was she thinking about him too? Was she safe? Then, one night, just as he had started to give up, she returned. She appeared at the edge of the trees near his house, quiet and graceful, just like before. Rayan's heart jumped, and he stood up at once. "You came back," he said softly. "I had to," she replied. "There are things I must tell you." They sat down together again, under the same soft streetlight. She looked more serious this time, her glowing eyes a little dimmer, her face more thoughtful. "What's wrong?" Rayan asked. "My people know," she said. "They know I spoke to you. They know I returned." Rayan's heart sank. "Are you in danger?" She shook her head. Not yet. But I've been warned. I broke a rule, Rayan. One of our strongest rules. What rule? No emotional contact. We are only allowed to observe, watch, learn. We cannot form bonds. We cannot feel what I'm feeling. Rayan looked at her gently. And what are you feeling? She paused for a moment, then whispered, something new, something warm. I don't fully understand it yet, but it grows every time I see you. He didn't know what to say. He could see the truth. In her eyes, she was struggling with something big, something powerful and confusing. I don't want to put you at risk, he said. If it's dangerous for you to be here, I don't care about the danger, she interrupted, her voice steady. What I feel now is more real than anything I've felt in all my years of travel. You whispered something that woke something inside me, something no mission, no training, no system could prepare me for. Rayan was quiet for a moment. He realized this wasn't just about him. This was about someone who had never experienced love or even closeness before. Her people had taught her to think, to learn, but not to feel. He reached out slowly and held her hand. It was warm, soft, real. You're not alone anymore, he said. Whatever happens, I'll be here. A tear slid down her cheek, shimmering, like liquid starlight. I've never cried before, she whispered, surprised. We don't cry where I come from. It means you're feeling something, he said. And that's not a bad thing. She looked at their hands together, then back at his face. But Rayan, my time here is limited. I don't know how long I can keep returning. They may soon take me away, erase my memories, end this connection. Rayan felt a heavy weight in his chest. They can erase your memories? Yes. It's part of our control system. If one of us breaks the code, they erase the memory of the event. That way, no feelings remain, no connections, no pain. That's cruel, he said quietly. It's how they keep the mission safe, she explained. But it also means I may wake up one day, not knowing who you are. Rayan looked into her eyes, his voice trembling. And if that happens? If you forget me? She didn't answer for a moment. Then she gently placed her hand on his chest, over his heart. Then promise me, she said, that you will remember for both of us. He nodded slowly. I promise. They sat together in silence, knowing time was short. Liari began to speak, again, this time softly, as if sharing a memory. In my world, she said, we don't marry. We don't even choose partners. Everything is decided by logic, by genetics, by science. Love doesn't exist. But I've watched humans for many years now. I've seen how they smile when they see someone they care about, how they write poems, sing songs, make promises, even cry. Rayan listened carefully. I never understood it, she continued, until I heard your whisper. It wasn't a loud shout. It wasn't planned. It was soft, honest. It came from somewhere deep. He looked at her, eyes gentle. I didn't know a whisper could travel across the stars. It did, she said, and it changed everything. They stayed, like that for a while, under the stars that now felt closer than ever. Rayan didn't want the night to end. He didn't want her to go again. But he knew he couldn't stop it. Finally, Liari stood up. I must return now. They're watching closely. I pushed my time too far already. Will you come back? He asked. I'll try, she said. But if I don't, remember this moment. And never stop whispering the truth. She took one last look at him, her face full of emotion, and then, like the last time, She disappeared quietly into the night. Rayan stood alone once more. But he was no longer the same man. He had touched a soul not from this world. He had shared a bond no rule could erase, and even if she forgot, he would remember. Rayan could feel it deep in his heart. Something was changing. Ever since Liari's last visit, he had been waiting, watching the stars more than ever. Each night, he sat outside his home, hoping to see her silver robe among the trees, to hear her soft voice call his name again. But she didn't return. Not for days, not for weeks. The silence felt heavier than before. Rayan kept his promise and remembered every word, every moment, and every feeling. But slowly, fear began to grow inside him. Had they taken her back? Had they erased her memory? One evening, just after sunset, a strong wind passed through the trees. The air felt different, colder, more serious. Rayan stood at his gate, and suddenly a soft voice called from the shadows, "Rayan." He turned quickly. There she was, Liari. But something was different. Her robe was darker now, her glow dimmer. Her eyes looked tired, almost afraid. "You're here," he whispered. "I came. But this might be the last time." His heart sank. What happened? She stepped closer, her voice calm but heavy. "They've given me a choice. One final choice. Either I end this connection now, or they erase my memories and take me away forever." Rayan felt his breath stop. Liari looked up at the sky. "I didn't expect this. I thought I could control my feelings, keep my mission safe. But I couldn't. That whisper, it changed me. It taught me something about humans, about love, that no training ever did." She looked at Rayan, her eyes full of feeling. "But they don't see it that way. To them, I broke the law." Rayan's voice was shaky. "And if you leave me, what happens?" "I go back. I stay in line. I forget all of this. I continue my mission like it never happened. And if you don't, then they erase everything. My memories, my identity. I'll forget who I am, who you are, what I felt." A deep silence hung between them. Rayan felt like time had stopped. The thought of her forgetting everything, forgetting him, made his chest hurt. But more than anything, he didn't want her to suffer. "You don't have to do this," he said. "You don't have to risk everything." "I already have," she replied. He looked at her, searching for the right words. "If you go back and forget me, would you still be the same Liari I met?" "No," she whispered. "I would be empty, a version of me, but without this peace, without this feeling." Rayan's hands were shaking. "Then don't go." "But if I stay, I'll lose everything I was before. My purpose, my home, my people." He was silent for a while, then slowly said, "I can't ask you to give up your world for me." Liari stepped closer. "You didn't ask. My heart made the choice before my mind could stop it." Rayan took a deep breath, trying to stay strong. "I don't want you to forget me," he said. "But if that's the price for your safety, I'll carry the memories for both of us." Tears formed in Liari's glowing eyes. "You always say the words I never knew I needed to hear." She reached out and gently touched his face, her fingers warm and trembling. "If I lose my memories, will you tell me this story again? Even if I look at you and don't remember your name?" Rayan nodded. "1,000 times if I have to." She smiled through her tears. Then, for the first time, she leaned forward and gently rested her forehead against his. No kiss, no words. Just a quiet moment where two souls from different worlds shared something deeper than any rule could break. After a long silence, she whispered, "Tonight, I will make my choice." Rayan swallowed hard. "What will you choose?" She looked into his eyes and said, "Love." Then she turned and walked toward the shadows. The stars above seemed to shine brighter for a moment, as if the universe had noticed. Ryan stood there long after she was gone. His heart was heavy, but a small part of him also felt proud. Liari had chosen something that wasn't easy, something real. Later that night, as he lay in bed, a strange light passed across the sky. A flash of silver, then silence. He watched it disappear into the stars, wondering if that was her, leaving for good. The next morning, the world felt colder. He waited outside again that evening. No sign, no voice, no feeling of her presence. A quiet fear wrapped around him like a blanket. Had they taken her? Had her memories already been erased? Had he lost her forever? But even with the fear, he held on to hope, because she had made her choice, and that choice was love. Months passed since Liari's last visit. Ryan tried to live his life as before, but the quiet town felt different now. The stars still shone every night, but the magic he once felt when looking at them was missing. Sometimes he would sit on the bench where they had met, hoping for even the smallest sign that she might come back. But she didn't. Not in the way he remembered. Ryan wondered if her memories had truly been erased. He tried to imagine her waking up without knowing him. The feeling was too painful. Still, he held on to the promise he had made to her, that he would remember for both of them. One evening, as he walked through the park near his house, he noticed a woman sitting quietly under the old oak tree. She was dressed simply and had soft eyes that looked familiar. Ryan's heart beat faster. Could it be her? She looked up and smiled gently at him. "Hello," she said softly. "Hello," Ryan replied, feeling a mix of hope and fear. Thaki. Woman didn't know his name. She didn't remember where she was from or why this place felt so special. But there was something about her. Something in the way she smiled, the way her eyes searched his face, that told Ryan she was not just a stranger. They began to meet often, slowly becoming friends. The woman, who now went by the simple name Lena, was kind and curious. She loved to walk by the river, listen to the birds, and watch the stars. But she had no memory of her past life, no memory of Ryan or the promise they shared. Still, Ryan was patient. He never told her everything at once. Instead, he shared stories of his life, of the town, and sometimes he spoke of a beautiful girl who once whispered to him under the stars. He told her about hope, kindness, and love, the things that made life meaningful. One night, as they sat under the sky, Ryan whispered the same words he had said so long ago. "She's so beautiful. I wonder if she'd marry me." Lena looked at him with wide eyes, and for a moment her face changed. A flicker of recognition crossed her eyes, like a distant memory trying to break through. Ryan reached out and took her hand gently. "Do you feel that? Like something inside you remembers?" She smiled softly, squeezing his hand. Maybe I do." Though she didn't remember everything, something deep inside Lena was awakening. The love that had once connected two souls was beginning to grow again, slowly and quietly. Ryan felt hope bloom in his heart. He knew the journey ahead would not be easy. There would be moments of doubt, confusion, and loss. But he also knew one thing clearly. Love was stronger than fear, stronger than memory, stronger than distance between stars. Because love is not just in the mind, it is in the heart, and as long as the heart remembers, there is always a chance. Under the endless sky, two souls from different worlds began to write a new story, a story of hope, of second chances, and of the beautiful mystery that is love.